Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Serfs. I am Lance, one half of the Serfs, and I have a very special guest with you today. He is the great professor, the host of Re-Education. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Serfs. I am Lance, one half of the Serfs, and I have a very special... Oh, sorry, guys. The sound was doubling there for a second. Anyways, back to the man of the hour. He is the great educator, the host of Re-Education. I've got his channel up on the screen right now, so if you are watching this live, please go subscribe, hit it, and say hello to Mr. Re-Education himself. How are you doing, man?
Hey, not bad, Lance. Thank you very much for having me on.
And what do you go by? Do you prefer Re-Education, or do you prefer the professor, or...
Just call me Aaron.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that would be doxing you, because I was like, I know his name, but some people don't like using their real names.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, I usually go by Aaron in my videos, or call me really whatever you want.
Okay. Well, Aaron, why don't you tell me a little bit about Re-Education, and what is it you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Re-Education is basically an anti-fascist channel. We promote all kinds of things, specifically libertarian socialism, anarchism, communism, that sort of thing. And I try to educate people broadly on specific topics. Right now, we're doing Trudeau Week in commemoration of Canada Day, even though Canada Day does seem to fall really closely to America's birthday. But this year I decided to do a Canada Day special, so we're talking about liberalism and all of its evils, and that's kind of the outline of what I'm doing right now. Broadly, though, we discuss a lot of different topics. One of the main things that I've been touching on lately is the spectacle, and how most things that happen in the mainstream media is kind of all theater.
Yeah, why don't you expand on the spectacle a little bit?
Okay, yeah, sure. So the spectacle is basically the way that it's one thing that people have a misconception of is this: it's not a directed action. It's not something that a bunch of people inside of a smoke-filled room are coming up with and trying to create. Though I do see that happening as well. But basically, what it is whenever you see something that's happening in the media, usually there is a specific narrative that is going on, and usually that narrative is basically kowtowing to the mainstream, or kowtowing to basically the political discourse that happens within the center or center-right libertarianism, or sorry, not libertarianism, sorry, oh geez, I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, so basically the spectacle. Yeah, I don't do live shows all that often. I just did one the other day. So basically, the spectacle is basically where everything that's being projected to you through the mainstream media, it goes through a certain number of filters, and what's projected to you is something that is basically the centrist narrative that people want you to hear that doesn't affect anything to do with the establishment. So usually you'll hear things that are very supportive of war. You'll hear things that are very supportive of the oil industry, big business, that sort of thing. And anything that goes against that, you're never going to really hear about it. Mm-hmm. So, and that's in broad scopes. That's kind of what the spectacle is.
And, relating to censorship, because that's obviously what we're going to talk about, we're going to get into Three Arrows and how his channel was taken down and then put back up, thankfully. You just recently got censored on Twitter, right? Can you describe that a little bit?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I made a video yesterday basically talking about this Andy NGO, or Andy No. I know that you guys are going to be doing a video about him soon as well. Mm-hmm. And basically what he is a journalist, heavy scare quotes on that, and he goes around being basically a professional victim. So he showed up at an anti-fascist rally that was railing against the white supremacist group, the Proud Boys, and he ended up getting beaten up. Interestingly, though, he was one of, I believe, only 8 people that actually got bullied at the rally, the rest of whom were mostly cops and a few other individuals. But he went down there with the intention of getting harassed and injured, and it just so happens that he ended up getting harassed and injured. So I don't condone violence on my channel, but also at the same time, I don't like to disparage different groups from having a diversity of tactics. And for the most part, things that were happening at that event were throwing milkshakes, silly string, that sort of thing. And yes, Andy ended up getting bullied quite badly, which Officially, I do not condone, but also at the same time, when you go out looking for trouble, expecting that trouble is going to happen, it's rather usual that trouble will find you. So,
Mhm. Well, he had a
and
long history of that too, right? I mean, this was not the first time that he had gone to a rally with the specific goals of goading Antifa into basically creating the narrative that he wants, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that he wanted. He wanted to prove the fact that they're kind of violent animals and, making himself a martyr in the process.
that's exactly right. Like I said, Andy is a professional victim. I akin it to this. He's basically the guy at the bar that's going to continuously call your girlfriend or your lover a cunt over and over and over again, expecting you to hit him.
Hmm.
And then when you hit him, he goes crying to the police saying, "Oh my God, this guy hit me."
Yeah.
So I don't feel sorry for him. I don't think that, and I'm not going to condone violence, obviously, because that
Hmm.
would get my channel shut down. But obviously, the thing that happened there was him doing something that would inevitably get him beaten up, and he ended up getting beaten up. So I've been railing against him for the past couple of days, and Twitter found it in their infinite wisdom to limit my channel, or sorry, limit my Twitter account, so I won't be able to post anything that is visible to anybody outside of my specific base for the next 11 hours, which is absolutely ridiculous.
So it's like that's the first time I've heard of this. It's an 11-hour suspension, kind of like just you're quarantined essentially.
Apparently so. They put me in the naughty corner. They slapped my pee pee a little bit, and now I'm just sitting here suffering the consequences, which is hilarious because now all of a sudden my channel and my Twitter account got more traction and more attention today than it has in months.
Oh,
So
fantastic! So you got the Streisand effect.
exactly, great job, Twitter. Absolutely excellent. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the exact same thing happened to us when we basically got shut down entirely. We went from 7,000 subscribers to like 15,000 in the span of like 4 days, just because of all the noise and ruckus it caused.
Well, and that's exactly what happens every time they try to do stuff like this.
Hmm.
I made a video recently talking about freedom of speech and censorship in regarding to the whole controversy that was happening with what is his name, Steven Crowder, a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and basically the whole point of my video was saying that though I don't think anything that he said was good, I think that it's actually abhorrent. I think that he's a terrible racist, homophobe, and I hate the guy.
Hmm.
But also at the same time, having these multinational corporations having the power to censor people out of existence
Hmm.
doesn't do anybody any good.
Hmm.
Of course, we should expect them to uphold the rules and so forth that they have made.
Yeah, which they
But
don't.
unfortunately,
There's no
yeah.
clear guide, right?
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we shouldn't expect that it's not going to affect us exponentially more than any of them because they are towing the line of the establishment and we are directly railing against it.
No, absolutely. But you know what's kind of cute about all this? It's the only time you'll see like the far right or even like the right wingers suddenly ask for ideas close to socialism, like when they're all like, "Oh, we need to, make these like a public utility and things like that, and it should actually be owned by the people." And we're on the
Yeah.
other end, like, we've been saying this for some time now.
It's so frustrating because that's the thing, though, is that when it comes to right wingers and when it comes to corporations and stuff like that, they love socialism so long as it helps them, but disparages anybody that doesn't have the exact same viewpoint as them.
Yes, of
Right?
course.
So,
And at the same time, there seems to be this implication that there's a strong inherent bias towards right wingers, whether it's censorship on the Twitter or censorship on the YouTubes. And I mean,
oh, yeah.
I'm referring, of course, to our good friend, the master of the beanie, Tim Pool, who has taken his time on the day that he should be celebrating his patriotism and raw love for America to just going off about Dan Arrows.
Yeah.
He's made so many posts about him today. Um, yeah, the first one. This is a direct result of the Vox adpocalypse. Your video made reference to Nazism. Like all other historical channels that got axed or had videos purged, you are not above the new rules. See, this is a really important distinction I think everyone needs to make, is that people like Steven Crowder, for example, he was, in my opinion, in violation of what they laid out as their terms of service, which is that, he was directly inciting hate speech. He was targeting an individual, and, he was using language that I would classify as hate speech personally. Um, But at the same time, someone like Dan Arrows, who produces videos debunking people like Jordan Peterson and debunking people like Steven Crowder, you can't equate the two. It's not exactly the same thing. If someone says, I can't even say it on the live stream, but if someone does the old HH, right? And then someone on the other end of the spectrum says, yeah, this is a reference to the Nazis because he just said that. There's a difference between those two things, right? Tim Pool is kind of lumping these into the same argument. Like you are just a victim of the fact that Vox, and it wasn't Vox, by the way, it was an individual, it was Carlos Maza, but you're just a victim of this whole overarching censorship. That's what happened here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the problem when you're having an algorithm take care of all of the banning and so forth that is going on. There's no way for it to judge nuance. There's no way for it to actually judge what's going on. So somebody railing against Nazis and an actual Nazi are going to be seen as exactly the same. They're going to be seen as equivalent. And it doesn't help that the mainstream media and basically the narrative throughout all of the center and liberals and through the right is that Nazis and anti-fascists are exactly the same anyway, right?
Yeah, getting lumped into the same pool, unfortunately.
Exactly.
The same
so that's
Tim Pool.
Oh, there you go. I think Tim had his beanie on a little bit too tight this morning when he was talking about all of this because they have a fun time talking about how they love freedom of speech, but they never seem to talk about it when it's anybody against their specific brand of free speech.
Oh, absolutely, of course. No.
Yeah.
Like, I think Steven Crowder made some post when he was going through that whole ordeal saying, like, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. If you are being censored by, YouTube or you're a victim of this, we will tell your story. We'll come support you. And then Kevin Logan, like, came out and he was like, yeah, this happened to me. I got demonetized and fuck you. I'm not in the same pool as you. I'm not supporting your bigotry and hatred. You are being censored for very different reasons, right? You can't lump these all as if there's this huge problem with free speech on these platforms.
Well, and the thing about that is it's all very deliberate, right? The right has an incredibly and Thought Slime actually did a wonderful video about this recently. The right has an incredibly large platform and an insane amount of money for them to just dump into funding all of these people and screaming and crying and saying that they're victims whenever this sort of thing happens, whereas the left just simply does not have that. So, of course, every time you hear about the censorship that happens online, it's going to be from a right-wing perspective because we just simply do not have as much reach as they do.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
they have infinite money to be throwing behind it. So, and the idea that the right is being censored online is absolutely unbelievably wrong.
Yeah.
For example, what was that cunt's name that we were just talking about there?
Steven Crowder?
Steven Crowder. Yeah. he got demonetized for about 35 fucking seconds, and he cried and screamed and pouted that he was a victim the entire time.
I know.
And then 20 seconds after that, he was put back. He was remonetized again. Whereas all of the left-wing content creators and so forth didn't even come close. They still, I believe, don't have any monetization.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Logan still has his entire channel demonetized. So that goes to show one important thing, and this is what was so scary about the Three Arrows thing to me. Because when we got shut down, because the exact same thing happened to us on April Fools, our entire channel got shut down without strikes or warnings or anything. All of a sudden, just cut, and they gave us some weird reason that we were apparently doing scams or we were trying to do phishing scams for people or something like that. But at the time, I was like, we have 7,000 subscribers. I get it. We're just a small little blip in the radar. Three Arrows has 163,000. Like, I thought he would be somewhat insulated from this,
Yeah, well, what you should have done is you should have just called everybody that you had a problem with a lispy queer, and they would have given you all of your
we would have been
money
totally
back.
Fine.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's the thing, that YouTube and everyone else, they're going to stop and they're going to censor anyone except for the people that make them the most money. And even 150,000 subscribers, even 1 million subscribers doesn't come anywhere close to the likes of Stephen Colbert or CNN or Fox News. Those are where they make their biggest that's where they make the largest amount of money, right? So little guys like anybody that tries to talk about anything that's real, anything political, they are of course going to get shut down. That's just the way it is.
Rylock, thank you very much. He says, the serfs more like the truth. Skip with the good work. Not just us. We are talking with Re-Education. Please, Rylock, go subscribe to him. I'm putting this stuff up here. Back to your point, Aaron, and when it comes to Three Arrows, so I'll just give a quick rundown for anybody who doesn't know the Three Arrows story already. So Three Arrows has this wonderful video called "Jordan Peterson Doesn't Understand Nazism," and this was actually the first video that introduced me to Three Arrows. Now, people who don't understand the kind of the gatekeeping of YouTube and how it works is that you are kind of hidden behind this iron curtain of content. And if you're searching for things, it's not going to be self-evident that these videos will pop up right away. You have to have been using YouTube for a while. You have to have been basically demonstrating through your searching and your watching that you are interested in more leftist content before that content starts to be suggested to you. The opposite is not true, right? On the other side of the spectrum, you can search for something like how to make baby formula, and then all of a sudden, all your feed and all your pop-ups are going to be like Jordan Peterson destroys liberals, Ben Shapiro eats feminists for breakfast, all these kind of things. So it took me a while to find Three Arrows, but I found them because I was searching relentlessly for debunking Jordan Peterson videos, and I came across Jordan Peterson Doesn't Understand Nazism. This was when Three Arrows had something like 30,000 subscribers or something like that, and right away, you're captivated by this man. He is so intelligent, so articulate. He knows history like to the depths of a professor, and especially when it comes to World War II history, and is just capable of taking, these salacious arguments from pundits like Jordan Peterson and dissecting them, right, clip by clip. Like, I don't know about you, Aaron. How many of his videos you've seen?
Recently, I haven't seen a lot of his videos, but back in the day, I used to watch him constantly. I thought that he was a fantastic resource, and one of the main, well, not one of the main reasons, but definitely one of the reasons why I drifted further and further left throughout a certain amount of time between him, Garrett, and Kevin Logan, and so forth. Those are definitely the major channels that got me convinced that the left was actually doing something good, and that the right were, well, you know.
You know the rest. So this video, Jordan Peterson Doesn't Understand Nazism, got flagged, I believe, something like 3 or 4 days ago for hate speech. Now, this isn't unusual. This has actually happened to us. We had another video where we made fun of Mark Randazza, who's a lawyer to the Nazis. He's like Alex Jones's lawyer, but he's also Richard Spencer and a whole bunch of other people. Or maybe he's Richard Spencer's assistant lawyer. But anyways, he's a lawyer who frequently defends alt-righters and Nazis. And so we made a video that made fun of him. And it was a parody. It was one of those fake commercials, right? Like, he's the lawyer who wants to work for you kind of thing. Our video got flagged for hate speech, and it got censored and then taken down. And at the time, again, we only had 5,000 subscribers, so we couldn't really fight that. But what happens on your end, if that happens to you, is that you just get this takedown notice or the censorship notice, and you get one appeal. And the appeal can't even be more than like a single line. And in that appeal, you can say, this shouldn't be taken down. This was a parody of a public figure or whatever. And then after that appeal, they just took our entire video down, and that was the end of it. So I am assuming that happened to Three Arrows when it came to this Jordan Peterson Doesn't Understand Nazism video. And then afterwards, 3 days later, he got that video reinstated after obviously there was some public outcry and backlash online. And then the next day, his entire channel got taken down. Or that was last night.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Jordan Peterson fans are known for being these free speech warriors, and this is not the first time that we've heard about this exact same thing happening, right? Yeah. They are constantly doing this over and over and over again to different channels where they'll go in, they'll mass flag the channel, and then this channel will get taken down for whatever violation they decide to flag it as. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is that I'm not going to say specifically that Jordan Peterson is a Nazi. He definitely dog whistles fascism all the fucking time. But the thing is, though,
is that like a cultural Marxist, my friend.
Oh my goodness, I am a cultural Marxist. But the thing is that Nazis, fascists, they don't care about free speech. Mm-hmm. Richard Spencer is on record as saying that they don't care about free speech. They use it as a weapon so they can attack the left. Mm-hmm. They don't give a shit if they completely destroy all of us, so long as they can use whatever tool is provided to them. So of course they're going to use this as one of their tools. And personally, on my channel, if people have seen anything to do with my channel, I am actually, honestly, for free speech. I think that I am for all freedom. That's what an anarchist is, so long as it doesn't inflict on the rights and freedoms of anyone else. Mm-hmm. So I think that when it comes to fascism, Nazism, stuff like that, where they're using free speech as a bludgeon, as a weapon to attack people, mm-hmm. then yeah, I would say that is using your freedom to attack somebody else. Therefore, I don't think that you should have, I personally don't think that you should have the ability to be able to do that. The thing that I differ from most people when I talk about that is I don't think that the people that are in charge, the unjustified hierarchy, should have the control over who gets to say what, because then it's always going to be the people that support the establishment that don't get censored, and the ones that don't are the ones that are going to be axed.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not an anarcho-communist myself, but my understanding of your philosophy is that you just don't believe in any unjust hierarchies, right?
Yeah, but that's basically it. I don't believe in any. We should dismantle all unjustified or unnecessary hierarchies, and I think that the workers should own and control the means of production.
I mean, I can fuck with a lot of that. A lot of that sounds good to me.
It's not that radical of an idea when you
no, it's not.
Talk
No, when you
right?
say it like that, yeah. So back to the Three Arrows thing. Do you think then that what happened to him? Obviously, I like on my end of things. I think basically the video got flagged by the algorithm, and then it's then sent to some very poor employee somewhere who has to watch thousands and thousands of hours of video with no idea or context of who they are, just looking for things to flag, right? So that's how it maybe eventually got the channel struck or took down. Or do you think that this could potentially be another coordinated attack, say by the Lobster Army, to take him down?
So I'm not gonna speculate because I don't have any personal information on it. But if I was to assume, I you know what, I could even say that it's honestly both. And I don't think in any small way that it doesn't have to do with the ramped up popularization or oversaturation of leftists being demonized in the media right now. So we are constantly being called equivalent to fascists. We are constantly being called totalitarian or authoritarian or incredibly violent, even though milkshakes do not equate to the same thing as actual bullets, which is what has been going on in, say, Christchurch and the Unite the Right rally and so forth. So as far as did this happen because of the Jordan Peterson army? Yeah, probably. Did it happen because of these multinational corporations cracking down on anything that's going against them? Yeah, it could be that too. Either way, it doesn't really matter because the end result is the people that rail against the establishment get censored, and the people who don't cry like they do and then get paid a whole bunch of money for it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that, and we'll talk a little bit about Andy No and how his GoFundMe is making more money than anyone who ever got attacked or killed in Charlottesville, for example. But before we leave the Three Arrows thing, some people in the chat are saying his channel's back up. It is back up. It went down for about just under 24 hours before they reinstated it. But this is an important point that people should remember. Three Arrows had an enormous fan base, and it includes myself. And even when our channel got shut down, we had a small but still very nice and loyal fan base too of 7,000 subscribers. That helped both of us out, right? Like it really helps if you already have people who know who you are and can go on Twitter and express their outrage and tag and say, at Team YouTube, at YouTube, what happened here? But this must be happening en masse to smaller channels across the board that we don't know about, right? Because they get lost in the fray.
Guaranteed. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. I haven't seen any specifically, but that's because they're smaller channels. And anytime that a smaller channel does get shut down, I would love for them to come talk to me. I listen to every one of my comments. If you come find me on my Discord link, it's an open Discord. Come on in, DM me, let me know what happened, and I'll promote you. Like, absolutely no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Where do you think this is headed next? Because obviously this whole thing was it was kind of like a powder keg that exploded at the start of Pride Month because of the Carlos Maza, Steven Crowder incident, and now it's kind of gone into this weird limbo where YouTube has successfully shut down a handful of actual alt-right, actual Nazi channels, which are just blatant. Richard Spencer used to have an active channel on YouTube where he gained thousands of dollars in super chats every month. So YouTube did a bit of a good job in let's not say a good job. This is way too late to be doing these kind of things, but they did actually purge a lot of the alt-right and a lot of the right-wing stuff from the platform. And at the same time, now we're in this weird fray where people like us, people like Kevin Logan, and I'm sure it's happening to you, our videos are getting demonetized en masse, right? So the ability to really sustain ourselves or even try to live off the platform and our art or our work is vastly becoming impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole thing is that, like I said a moment ago, when they decide to use this as a way to uh, attack the alt-right or attack the Nazis or attack the fascists, they're not just doing that to attack the alt-right and the fascists. They use that as a smokescreen so they can go ahead and they can get rid of any channel that they want. Of course, ThoughtSlime has a slightly differing opinion on that. He thinks that they're going to attack and get rid of all the left-wing channels regardless. And yeah, you know what? That's actually true. A lot of LGBT groups have been demonetized for years. They've never been able to have their channels actually make any money. Mm-hmm. And even Google recently, I just had somebody DM me about this, mm-hmm. that when they were going to have one of their floats in a pride parade, people were going to go out and walk with the float and have T-shirts on saying things against how they treat people in the LGBT community, how they are getting demonetized and so forth. And Google actually released a statement saying that anybody doing that is going to be violating their real life terms of service. I don't know how the fuck that works, but so where do I think that this is going? I think that it's going exactly where it's obviously going, right? Where they're going to get rid of all of the channels that are nothing more than, that they're going to get rid of any channel that isn't doing something that's super popular, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't even know what the hell what's on popular YouTube right now. Probably, maybe video game reviews or book reviews or whatever the hell, and they're going to keep CNN, they're going to keep Fox News, they're going to keep they're going to keep the channel where their bread is buttered, where their butter is breaded.
Yeah.
And you're going to see all of these independent content creators just get axed and gotten rid of.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. I'm just going to quickly answer a super chat. Thank you so much to Andrew Saxon and Diabolique Down Under. Can the Serfs do a video on Tim Pool now? He's got some untapped, unintentional comedic material ready to be reaped, I think. Yes, we definitely have to do a video on Tim Pool. I mean, maybe we should collab on that, Aaron, and do some Tim Poolery.
I would love to. I absolutely hate that guy. Oh my goodness, it makes me so angry. There's nothing worse in the world than an Uncle Tom, right? And that's exactly what he is. He goes out and he tries to say that he's a left winger, and then constantly does everything to show that he's a right winger.
Yes.
And that he will attack the left. That's the same thing with Dave Rubin. It's the same thing with tons of other channels.
Yeah, or even the people who try to pass themselves off like Sargon as classical liberals, right? I mean, for a classical liberal, you don't follow some of the tenets of classical liberalism, which is obviously freedom of religion, right? You seem to have a big problem with mosques and Muslims living or breathing around you. And when it comes to Tim Pool, he seems to be like constantly trying to define himself as a centrist, right? I'm a journalist. I'm a centrist. Not to worry about any of this.
Oh yeah, but he's socially liberal. Remember, he's socially liberal,
of course.
Which basically to me means that he'll say whatever he possibly can to make money.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Lexord says, "BreadTube call to action was how I found the search." Oh, sweet. Yeah, it did obviously, like, a lot of people said, like, you know, for the fact that we got shut down, you guys shouldn't be too upset about that because it ended up being a huge blessing to our channel. I totally agree with you. I won't deny that. I think, though, that it's really unfair for, like me and Aaron were saying earlier, the smaller channels who don't have that privilege, who don't already have little fan bases that could help us, right? Like if Re-Education got taken down tomorrow, I know that I could galvanize a lot of people to help you out, you know, and do everything in their power to try and uplift this and get your channel back. And we probably would be able to get it back. But there's a lot of people who don't have, the establishment that we already do.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Andy No. Oh, thank you, Johnny. Fantastic.
Oh,
name.
sure.
Yeah, let's move on to the Andy No controversy.
Sure. Just one quick question before we move on.
No. Or we can keep talking about this. I mean, the world is your oyster.
Well, I didn't. Sorry, man. I didn't know if you wanted to mention it or anything, but you actually made an incredibly long list of all of these left-wing creators that got shut down recently since all of this happened. Right? There was there was Kevin Logan. There was Three Arrows. There was Vosh.
Yeah,
there was I got hit too. Like,
I'll put Kevin Logan up here. So you got hit on Twitter. You haven't been hit on YouTube yet, right? Or did you? Get hit?
Of course, I've been hit on YouTube constantly. Right, it's not something that I whine and cry about all the time. I like about I would say 20% of my videos are actually monetizable.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting close to that
Basically
too now.
every video that I put out is immediately demonetized, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so of
Oh, and
course
it
I
also,
get them.
I would be amiss if I didn't say this. It happened to the creationist cat, who is like an OG of basically the leftist creation sphere. He was like one of the only good atheist channels back in the day when atheists were basically also Islamophobes. He was one of the few that wasn't, and was also attacking people like Sargon and all those other right wing reactionaries. He's had videos just straight up censored, taken down, threats on his channel, stuff like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually really like Creationist Cat. I haven't watched him in a long time, but I used to watch his stuff all the time, and I thought that he was pretty good.
Yeah, and he's making a comeback now as Hey, it's Vadim,
Oh
and
yeah.
now he's just coming in strong. Like he just made a complete parody of Bohemian Rhapsody, but it's all about Sargon of Akkad, where he sang the whole thing, filmed all the parts. His full green screen costumes, dancing cats, the whole thing. It's absolutely brilliant.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out.
But yeah, so it's happening en masse, and these are the ones we know about, right? So these are the leftist creators we know about, and one big thing we wanted to talk about is the difference between this and say someone like Steven Crowder is there is no, you know, there is no waiting period. There is no public discussion about it. There's no Steven Crowder with his deep pockets, especially with all the funding he gets from outside sources, to sit there for a couple days and wait to see what exactly YouTube's going to do in terms of their decision. These people just get shut down. We just get struck.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's very little oversight. There's very little explanation as to what's happening.
Yep.
Um, Debo Leak is saying, in your Tim Pool vid, please show us the many places he wears his beanie in, plus random household objects he might put beanies on. Absolutely. um, in terms of, I know I talked to you about this, Aaron. In terms of getting your videos demonetized and deflagged, there's a great younger leftist creator called J. Greg, or maybe J. Ray. I might be getting his name wrong, but he figured out that the way that the videos get demonetized or instantaneously demonetized by the algorithm is it's done right after everyone's subtitles are formed. So for people watching who don't know this, when you're watching something on YouTube or you upload something to YouTube, sorry, after a little bit of time, YouTube automatically generates the subtitles for your videos. And inside those subtitles, it looks for words, keywords. Now, those words and the expansion of that library has grown. It used to be maybe things like fuck and shit and stuff like that. Now it's grown into words like obviously, Nazism, but even some words that seem a little bit more innocuous, words that are related to the LGBTQ community. So words like trans woman, words like lesbian, these words actually can sometimes trigger your video instantly getting demonetized. And the reason I know that specifically is because we wanted to make a PSA about copyrights. So we made a video about how to beat copyright strikes on YouTube. We uploaded it. The first time we uploaded it, it got instantly demonetized. So we started censoring random words. We would then upload it again, and we did it over and over and over until I couldn't for the life of me figure out which word was causing us to get demonetized. It turns out that word was lesbian.
Oh my goodness.
Lesbian. Because I had the word
Wow.
lesbian in that video. So once I just cut out a little bit of the audio so it goes lesbian, the video was suddenly not triggered by the automatic demonetization anymore.
Unbelievable.
Right?
It would be really nice, considering there are people that actually have their career built on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be nice if they actually, gave us a list of things that we couldn't do, so we could actually go about, using this as a real job rather than
Right?
just getting suspended for every fucking reason, no matter what happens?
With there's very little guidance, as like YouTube just put up these really extensive and new details as to what is considered unmonetizationable. Sorry, ooh, that's a mouthful. And they included things like speaking about war, talking about tragedies, talking about events that cause deaths. And fair enough, that's all fine. But if I have a video where I'm like, oh, I'm having a great time at the Pride Parade, I'm hanging out with my lesbian friend who's proud to be out or something like that, that sentence shouldn't demonetize my video, right? Like that shouldn't be a grounds for demonetization.
your sexual orientation should not be grounds for you to lose your money. That absolutely
Right?
doesn't make any sense, and
Like,
that's exactly what people during Stonewall fought for. Like, we're just coming off of the heels of Pride Month, and
mhm.
you're finding out that you're actually losing monetization because they're censoring you for being you, and that is absolutely just disgusting.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So for people watching who don't know of these other names we're talking about, go subscribe to people like Kevin Logan. Go subscribe to people like the Creationist Cat, because these people have been pretty much mass demonetized. In the case of Kevin Logan, his entire channel has been demonetized. So he can never make money from any of the videos he uploads. He can only make money. He can't even make money from Super Chat. He can only make money from Patreon. That's it. People. So you can just use YouTube as a voice amplification device.
Unbelievable.
hmm Um, so do you want to talk a little bit about Andy No? And
Yeah, absolutely. Let's cut into this big pile of shit with Andy No.
oh, let's pour a cool glass of milkshake and fill it with some instant dry cement.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? Okay. So, for those of you who don't know, Andy No, like I said at the beginning, he is a professional. He's a professional reactionary. He's a professional victim.
hmm
Throughout the course of his career, he has constantly gone out and tried to antagonize people and tried to make them do things to him, so
hmm
he would be able to basically claim that he's a victim.
Yeah.
And one of the things at this rally, you bring up milkshakes with cement in them. A
hmm
hilarious anecdote that I actually heard the other day from somebody, I can't remember, Haas.
hmm
He used to be a Young Turks contributor, and now he's a communist or something like that.
Okay.
He was actually saying that when you add even a small amount of sugar to quick drying cement, and I didn't know this, I should know this
hmm
because I used to be in
I
construction,
was
but
going to
if
say
you
you
add
did
a little,
construction for a while.
yeah, I'm actually surprised that I didn't know this, that if you just add a small amount of sugar to quick drying cement or cement in general, it doesn't set. So
Absolutely.
you would have a heavy drink, but that's about all you're going to have.
Yeah. And well,
And
I mean, you can follow that up with them switching the narrative from these were solid rocks basically as weapons to oh no they were still liquid, but it was battery acid and it was basically corrosive and burning people's skin off. And
oh
then
yeah,
that
and apparently he got hit in the head so hard that he got a brain aneurysm, and from that he ended up getting brain AIDS. And brain AIDS is the hardest thing to cure because once it's in your brain, you can't get rid of it or some fucking thing. Like
that
the
one's new to me. I hadn't heard that yet.
yeah, the insane, crazy conspiracy theories that resulted from this are just outlandish. It's unworldly that we would actually be having this kind of conversation, and it's
hmm
because people on, and I'm not going to say everybody on the right, because the general public, the regular people, right, that happen to lean right, usually they just don't have a good grasp or a good understanding of what's going on. But the professional right, the
Right.
professional reactionaries
hmm
that are making these kind of conspiracy theories and these kind of ideas up, they will do everything in their power to make it seem as though the left is equivalent to the right when it comes to violence, and it just is not fucking true. Like I
Yep.
said a moment ago, left-wing milkshakes do not equate to fascist bullets.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And so we've been researching him quite a bit because we're just in the middle of making a video on him and this whole debacle. So I'm going to do some spoilers here and give you guys some of the information that we've already found about Andy No. He was actually fired from his first his first job in for a newspaper. He was working for a school newspaper called the Vanguard. And you know that when you work for a newspaper, even if it's a small college newspaper, you usually put that in your Twitter account, for example, right? You'd put like Andy No, journalist at the Vanguard. At that same school, he went to an interfaith rally and then filmed a Muslim student, filmed him speaking at this rally, used his filming of the student out of context, uploaded it to his Twitter account saying, hey, this guy wants Sharia law, blah, 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 and all this other terrible stuff. And then Breitbart ran with that story and said a journalist from the Vanguard finds a student at a school, promoting Islamic faith and saying that he wants the Sharia law in America and all this other stuff. And of course, the Vanguard fired him, right? Because even though he didn't directly say this was an article for the Vanguard, if you're acting like you represent the Vanguard in this case, you'll get fired for that. Right away, what does Andy No do? He tries to twist the entire thing around and play the victim for the very first time. He says that he's been censored. He's been censored for his speech, for his dangerous ideas, and all that kind of stuff. And thus begins his long line of victim narratives where he basically tries to write all these op-eds, starts talking to all these like journalists. He actually, I think maybe got his first op-ed in a major publication shortly thereafter, where he wrote this incredibly Islamophobic op-ed. I don't want to say the name because I'm going to get the names wrong, but you can already see the history of this guy, right? And his grift, basically, starting from all the way back then.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about Andy is that he hides behind the fact that he is a gay person of color. And being a gay person of color does not exempt you from being a bigot.
Yes, yes, no, I totally agree with you. Um, I just got a couple super chats. Thank you very much to Kamazots and Corey Johnson. I'm going to answer both of those, but they might derail the conversation that we're having right now. So I'll answer especially the one about Mean Stevie afterwards because I want to talk to Aaron about that. Um, so the did you know about Andy No before this all happened?
Goodness no, I had no idea the guy even existed. Right up until I ended up being spammed by a whole bunch because I make videos talking about how milkshaking people. I'm not gonna shed any fucking tears for these people if they get milkshaked. If a fascist gets a little bit of spilled milk on their shirt and they cry over it, I'm not going to I'm not going to spend any time worrying about that person. So I made a video about that, railing, basically talking about how it's fun to have nice frosty milkshakes. And sometimes if they a little bit gets on a right winger and they scream like they're a victim and they cry about it, then oh well, basically was the gist of my video. So and then all of a sudden, within the last couple of days, I get bombarded with comment after comment saying, "Aaron, I can't believe that you'd be saying such things. This is no longer a fun game anymore. You're actually condoning people going out and attacking peaceful gay journalists and all of this sort of thing." And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you guys talking about? So they send me a link, and I check out the link, and it's of Andy getting, I think, slapped in the face, kicked, and which I don't condone. I don't condone violence.
We can't deny the fact that he did get beaten. Like he was
did.
beaten at this rally. Like
He
there's
got
no
beaten.
question about that. Yeah,
There is no question about that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I don't condone violence, right?
No.
But also at the same time, when you go to an event with the intent of getting yourself into trouble and then you get into trouble, you kind of were, I'm not going to say you're asking for it, because another one of these narratives that everybody likes to be spewing right now, which is driving me absolutely insane, is when you say that he was asking for it, they're basically linking that to the whole idea of, oh, well, you're blaming the victim. What if somebody wears a short skirt and they get raped, then you shouldn't be blaming the victim. So I really, and that's why I got banned or blocked from Twitter for now. Because
right.
I decided
false analogy.
Yeah, so I decided to say, well, yeah, that's a false analogy. If you want to use that analogy, it's a lot like Andy was standing there saying, please fuck me, and then when somebody fucked him, he cried that he got raped. And I think that analogy that they used is disgusting. I think that you shouldn't be disparaging actual rape victims by saying that a professional reactionary that got his ass beaten is the same as somebody that actually went through a very traumatic experience.
Oh, absolutely. They're not equatable.
No, they're not equatable at all.
No.
I kind of lost my train of thought because I just went on a bit of a rant there.
No, but I completely agree with you. That's the other thing, though. He has a long history of going to these events and basically provoking them. And he also has a very long history of doxing people. That's something like no one has been speaking about, right? There's a lot of different organizations that have come forward, and not just when this happened, but they've been doing it for a while, saying that, Andy No is notorious for stating when this particular organization is going to have a meeting. And these are journalists, by the way, speaking and saying that he has actually put us in danger. There's a number of Jewish journalists who have said that he's directly put them in danger by stating where their locations are going to be, stating where their stands are going to be at meetings or rallies. And it's a very big problem, obviously. And on top of that, we can't forget this. He is also notorious for writing articles about how hate crimes are fake or faked.
Yes.
Yes,
and I've seen many of those. Just in the last few days on his Twitter account, you can see things that he's talking about trans people getting attacked or whatever, and how that's fake, or how a black person ended up getting attacked because they were black, and that's fake. Because you can clearly see the narrative that he's trying to push online, and the fact that some actual apparently legitimate news sources, heavy scare quotes on that, are saying that he's a real journalist makes my fucking blood boil.
Yeah.
Because he is not a real journalist. He's a conspiracy theorist at best and a reactionary fascist whistleblower at worst.
Well, okay, speaking of conspiracy theories, obviously it came out right away that a lot of people were like, well, he doesn't actually work for Kiet, right? And then, of course, he does. He's an editor at Kiet, and he's also written articles for them. I mean, not a lot of articles, just a shockingly small amount of articles, but he still writes articles for that publication. And then right afterwards, the senior editor of Kiet came out and kind of tried to, I think they tried to attack Snopes online for saying, how dare you state that he doesn't work for us? He absolutely does. You call this fact-checking, right? But if I was to put on my Alex Jones hat for a moment, it does seem a little bit suspicious there, brother. That 2 seconds ago you probably didn't even know who he was, and then all of a sudden, you're coming out and you're saying that he's a deep member of the Kiet publication. It's a little unusual.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at the end of the day he was an editor at Kiet, right? There's no question about that. How good of a publication you want to say Kiet is? I mean, Kiet kind of strikes me from all the articles I've read there, and there's some notable exceptions. There's some outliers, but it's often just a center-right academic publication that's very friendly to Jordan Peterson.
Oh, well, excuse me for being so incredibly shocked.
Let me just quickly answer these. So, Kamazot says, flea market socialists and Black Red Guard are great left tubers that always ride the fine line of acceptability of what's okay on YouTube and deserve a lot more views and subs while they're here, in my opinion.
Oh, I totally agree. Flea Market Socialist is so fucking good. If you ever get a chance, check out his video their video on boomers.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, it just every time I watch it, it's just like so heart wrenching.
I put Flea Market Socialist. Okay, I've put his site up here, and it's definitely going to be added to my watch later. And the other one was Black Red Guard. Yeah, Black Red Guard is good. Up his channel as well. And Corey Johnson said, appreciating your guys' consistent content, clarity, great guests. Side question, thoughts and feels on the Means TV and working with them. Yeah, we can derail a little bit and talk about Means TV. Aaron, are you familiar with Means TV?
Just very, very barely. I've heard the name thrown around a few times. I think I've heard Peter Coffin talk about it once or twice, but I don't really know much about them.
So Means TV is basically trying to become the first socialist Netflix. So it's going to be a community-owned Netflix, which is basically everyone who works on the shows for it and everyone who works on the actual network and the channel, all of them are co-owners in the business.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. That's fantastic.
Right? Yeah, it's there's nothing not to like about it. And so
that sounds almost like a worker cooperative almost.
It is. It's entirely supposed to be a worker cooperative. That's what they want to be from the ground up. And their idea is they're going to attract a lot of what they consider the top talent by saying that, hey, not only can you make videos on our platform where you don't have to worry about random, takedowns or demonetization, but you also become a co-owner in the company by doing so.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So anyone who doesn't know about Means, subscribe to them. And to your question about doing stuff for Means, yeah, we're actually in talks with them. The guys who run it are really, really friendly, and they're deeply entrenched in the Chapo Trap House kind of podcast circles in the New York sphere. So they're awesome people. Back to Andy. So the thing about this situation that is infuriating me as well is now he's gotten everything he's wanted because he's in the media 24/7. He's been on CNN, he's been on Fox News, of course. He's been on Tucker Carlson multiple times. And on top of that, the GoFundMe. Like last I checked, it was at $180,000. Which, if he had medical expenses that he cannot afford, then in every way, I believe that, it would be nice if there was some way of people pulling together and helping someone out who got viciously beaten. In the case of Andy No, he's a well-off individual. He has every privilege imaginable. And do you want to compare this to, say, Charlottesville, where two people, one person was murdered and another person was brutally injured, and in both situations, their GoFundMes didn't come anywhere close to that amount? I mean, maybe it's just because the pockets seem to be deeper on the other side sometimes. But
I would love to speak to that. I don't know how much they actually made because of those when it came to the Unite the Right rally and the actual victims, the murder victims that were created because of that rally. I don't know how much they actually made, but it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that they made more money than Andy No did. Of course he did. That's because, like I alluded to at the very beginning, this is all part of the spectacle. It's very important that they make it seem as though left-wing left-wing people are just as violent, just as brutal, just as bad as the right wing, even though there are actual murderers on the right wing and there just aren't on the left wing. They make it so that you would think that there is, because the narrative is such that they can't have anything go against the establishment, go against the status quo, and do anything that'll allow people to actually seize back the power that they rightly deserve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Well, again, I kind of want to ask you because you seem to have a very impressive grasp on the way these narratives kind of shape themselves. Where do you see this going?
Well, where do I see? Again, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, right? But
You have to be the Nostradamus of the left from from now
yeah,
on.
yeah, no doubt. The whole point of my channel isn't to necessarily predict the future, but it is kind of a way to explain exactly what's going on now and kind of
Mhm,
relate it back to what has happened in the past. And what's going on right now is very similar to what has gone on in the past, right?
mhm,
And the idea that these narratives are being projected constantly to you, that the left is just as bad as the right and so forth. This is a way to try to prop up the capitalist establishment. It's a way to try to prop up the mainstream narrative that all violence is bad, all violence is equivalent, even though there are actual fascists and
mhm,
actual people fighting those fascists.
mhm,
We can't see the difference between the two.
mhm,
So I think that the idea that they're trying to get away with is to convince the public, and they've done a wonderful job at this. Actually, my brother even contacted me just today. Even wonderful guy, right? He's a little bit more center right than I am, and I've been moving him slightly to the left here and there. At least I hope I have.
Third
And
pill in your family.
yes, well, I've worked very hard to do those sorts of things because the narrative is that we have to fight against each other all the time, right? If
Yeah.
you have if you have right wing people in your family, the idea is that they want you to fucking go to war with those people.
Mhm,
And the difference between us is so fucking minuscule that it's almost non-existent,
mhm,
right? We have policy differences, we have ideological differences that could be worked out through debate, but we're not given the opportunity to work things out through an actual debate. What we're forced to do is pick a side and then fight to defend that side.
mhm,
I always like to say that they like to take us when we're born and put us in boxes and then tell us that we have to fight to defend those boxes for our entire lives.
mhm,
And that is not a conducive way for us to have a functioning society. If we want to actually talk about things that are going wrong in the world, let's talk about those things. Let's not turn it into, oh, my party says this or my side says this.
mhm,
There's a good chance that you're going to be able to talk to these people and actually get through to them on that sort of level. And as far as I'm concerned, the way that they're trying to portray this is exactly what they have been doing. Like I said, like I was getting to, my little brother contacted me today and said, Aaron, how in the world could you possibly be defending somebody that's being violent?
mhm,
And I said, well, I'm not defending anybody that's being violent. I legitimately all the time say that I don't condone violence.
mhm,
But at the same time, I'm not going to rail against a group that is on my side for using a diversity of tactics. And if you
mhm,
want to really look at this, the way that the way that I look at it anyway is that capitalism and the system that we're under right now puts us through immense violence all the time. Media Ray, who's a fantastic YouTuber, check them out. They're unbelievably good. Them and I were talking recently about reformative justice and how basically people right now are being punished for instead of actually having reformative justice, right? And they, damn it, I forgot where I was going with this. I'm having a bad time today. I
No,
haven't
you're having a
smoked.
great day.
I haven't smoked my legally authorized weed yet, so I'm having a hard time remembering this shit.
One of the benefits of being in Canada, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they're absolutely awesome. But yeah, the whole idea that that violence is exactly equivalent, it's not true,
No, no, no.
right?
I've got the domestic extremist related killings by U.S. perpetrators from 2018.
Oh yeah.
In 2018, extremist related murders were committed almost exclusively by right wing extremists. White supremacists took up 78%, anti government extremism 16%, incels 4%, and then domestic Islamic extremists 2%. So,
Wow.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
yeah, it's a far greater problem than it is, Islamic terrorism, which we're less constantly afraid of these days. But anyone who grew up in the Bush era or grew up during that time can remember how everyone was afraid every single moment of anyone who was slightly off white, right? Where everyone was a potential terrorist just lurking around the corner kind of problem. Um, But again, when you look at the statistics, when you look at what's actually happening on the ground floor of America, it happens to be usually white supremacists. It's
Yeah.
far right wing attackers.
Absolutely. I use those statistics all the time in my comment section, right? I'm
Hmm.
constantly getting bombarded saying with Nazis and fascists and right-leaning people saying, "Oh, well, the left has gone insane. The left is absolutely terrible." And I have to remind them, excuse me, but nobody on the left in America has killed anyone in the last, I think it's 30 years because of extremists,
Hmm.
because of terrorist attacks or anything like that. But the right, or at least the fascists, certainly fucking have.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, oh, I see Vadim streams is here. Yeah, we were singing your praises earlier, Vadim. We were talking about how you were one of the people as the creationist cat who got your content taken down, and then I started saying how your Sargonian Rhapsody is absolutely hilarious.
Oh,
Um,
creationist cat is in the
he
in the
is.
thing.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. I
yeah.
used to watch your videos. They were and probably still are absolutely awesome.
There you go. Awesome. Um, if I could just steer things a little bit back to the Three Arrows, because there's a couple points actually I forgot to talk about. He I think going forward he's obviously going to start. He's going to create and keep producing this kind of content. I don't see any reason for him to stop. But we were talking earlier about how we as leftists, and not just leftists, I think content creators on YouTube in general, the right are probably trying to do the exact same thing, are getting progressively neutered. We're getting more and more neutered in what we make. We have to censor certain words because we're worried about either getting flagged or demonetized. We have to censor our content because for those exact same reasons. This is going to start, I think, ultimately shaping, and it is already is shaping, right? Like in real time, the algorithm both recommends and shapes the way we produce content. It's kind of like a cat and mouse thing, constantly moving, and they're both chasing each other. So now I think we're going to start entering a period where people who aren't able to live off Patreon. Right, so there are people who have that privilege. People, like ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube, and those people who are so large where their Patreon can support their work, so they actually have the freedom to say whatever they want. But for the smaller people, like you or me, or even people much smaller, we're going to have to start consistently changing the way we do this. We will have to start changing the way we write scripts, for example, right?
Mhm.
Changing words and changing the direction of our material.
Yeah. Well, do you remember, and for the audience, because they definitely don't know this, but you and I had been, I don't know if it was actually you and I or if it was both of you, were talking about this recently and how dirty that makes me feel just to
Yeah.
know that we have to actually censor the things that we're trying to say when we're the good guys. We're
Hmm.
trying to be the ones that are out there actually railing against modern fascism, and
Hmm.
somehow we are the ones that have to censor everything we say, while people like people on the right are able to go ahead and call individuals lispy queers and get away with absolutely nothing but a slap on the wrist.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he still is selling the socialism is for fig shirt. It's still in his Twitter banner. He's still selling the baby version of that shirt. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
how
And
does
every
everyone
time,
not like? Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and every single time any of this happens, and I'm just going to keep saying the same things over and over and over again. Every time something like this happens, they cry and scream and pout and cry victim every time,
Hmm.
and they are the ones that are getting victimized the least when it
Oh
comes to this
yes,
sorts of thing.
absolutely. No, of course. Like Carlos Maza
LGBT
was the one
comment
experiencing the hate speech in that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
LGBT content creators get demonetized all the time
Hmm.
just simply because of who they are, and that is absolutely abhorrent.
Hmm. And like I just said earlier, we got demonetized for saying the word lesbian. So it's not even LGBT plus creators anymore. It's people who talk about that kind of content as well. Like
Yeah.
it's there's something has to change. I've spoken a lot to American Johnson about of non-compete about possibly starting an alternative to YouTube or trying to unionize outside of YouTube, right? And we're working on both of these things, but it's not without its own set of obstacles. I mean, unionization has never occurred on a scale this large because you got to remember YouTube is used by 1/7 of the world's population. Like it's a billion people who use the platform.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a little bit different than say collectively walking out of an Amazon warehouse, which in itself is as Amazon has shown is impossible. Get shut down. So
Yeah.
it's going forward. It's going to be a really difficult thing to do. And like I'm with you. Like I feel dirty having to change the way I produce content to be able to fit the narrative. I mean, even this show that we're doing right now, this live show, I'm going to take down right away because of all the things we've spoken about, and I'm worried it's going to affect our channel. You know, I'm worried if I leave it up long enough for the algorithm to look at what we've said and to track all the to to write the subtitles out and to track all the words and the amount of times we've said Nazism or Nazis in in effort of talking against them, against fascism. Still, it'll get flagged. It will be
Absolutely.
lumped in the same pile.
Lance, you have me on here. I'm a known anti-fascist. They are going to do everything they can to make sure that this video hurts your channel. I thank you very much for having me on, by the way.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I'll compliment you a little bit for a second here. You have probably one of the best oratory voices on the left. And I wanted to ask, how do you prepare for your shows when you do that? Like, do you sit down and because you speak obviously a lot more like a regular person, right? Like I could hold a conversation with you, but when I'm listening to your show, it's a lot more like this, and we need to understand. And when you speak like that, I'm like, whoa, I'm captivated. This is great.
Some people like that. A lot of people think that I just sound extremely condescending, and I definitely do understand where they're coming from when they say that. You know what? I used to do. I've been doing the YouTube thing for about a little over 10 years, and I've also been doing radio and so forth in different capacities over the course of a few years as well. So I have a bit of an understanding of how to usually project myself. But when it comes to making content, I said this in an outtakes video one time. I think about a topic I want to talk about, then I go have a shower. I think about it a little bit more. Then maybe I'll argue with some people in my family or friends about it for a little while, and then I'll sit down at my desk and I'll just basically blurt it out. So. Everything that you see as far as my videos go, it has a little tiny bit of a scripted element to it. And I do rehearse a few takes and so forth. But as far as everything else goes, I just kind of sit down and start talking. And when I go to edit the video, because I smoke a lot of weed, by that time I've completely forgotten what I've said. So watching my videos when I'm editing them is like watching a brand new channel all on its own.
Well, that's got to be a great experience on its own, right? You're always like, oh, that was very clever.
Oh, damn, that was a good point.
Oh, good job, past me. That's fantastic.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
What do you feel about moving on to other platforms? Like I know that Vosh successfully kind of got kicked off Twitch for making those kind of like well, they weren't anti-Semitic, right? He was just talking about bombing Israel as a company or a country or something like that. But he got kicked off of Switch. Or sorry, you got kicked off Twitch, and then you moved to YouTube very successfully. Have you ever thought about moving from YouTube to Twitch or vice versa?
Okay, so I'm basically computer illiterate, so I rely on a lot of other people to help me out with a lot of different things when it comes to that sort of thing. And I've had a lot of people tell me that I should be doing podcasts and stuff like that. And I've thought about it, but I don't really know where to land on those sorts of things. This kind of ties into what you were saying a moment ago about how YouTube is basically this 7% of the population or something like that watches YouTube, or some crazy extreme high number. That's the problem that you have when you have a monopoly. Right? Mm-hmm. You have a monopoly over everything that you watch on YouTube. There are, I think, 6 or 7 companies that control everything that you see on TV. Yep. These are monopolies. And I've made a video before talking about how you need to seize the means of video production. And I said it half jokingly, half serious, because the way that you actually combat something as massively large as YouTube is, unfortunately, we can make as many alternatives to YouTube as we want, and definitely we should be getting on those platforms and using them as much as possible. But fighting against a conglomerate of that size is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult, if not impossible, right? So as far as I'm concerned, the only real way to fight against this is to try to fight against the system. And I'm not talking about violently, and I don't want to take down the system because that's sedition and that's a 20-year sentence in jail. But as far as I'm concerned, that might be the only possible way that we could compete with something so large as YouTube. And not to mention, don't forget that Google owns YouTube, and they control what you see whenever you do a Google search. So.
Oh, they know more about you than you do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
When you were talking about getting high, I think that's when user named 1337420 donated 420 to the super chat, so that's awesome. Um,
Nice.
and oh, thank you so much, Kamazots. Unionization of bread tubers is a great idea. Look what happened to Vine when their top creators tried to band together. Also, just giving you money for the cause. Thank you so much, and for the shameless self promotion of my own channel, Kamazots. Cool. I will check out your channel. That sounds great. Um, well, when you were, are you familiar with that? Were you ever into Viners, Aaron?
No,
Okay, so
no, I'm an old man. I work in my garage most of the time. That's all I do. I know very little about the internet. I
so
know what Vine is, but that's about it.
well, it was right. It got shut
Or
down,
was.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So I believe it was 5 to 7 seconds, but it was just videos that were very sorry, quick. It was either 7 seconds to 10 seconds, and there's a spiritual successor out now for anyone who doesn't know called TikTok. But anyways, Vine ended up creating a lot of Vine stars, and they created all these people who obviously were famous just in the realm of Vine. And then Vine got shut down. So once it got shut down, they all kind of scattered and didn't know where to go. And unfortunately, that is where we got Logan Paul and his brother Jake Paul. So both of the Pauls came from Vine. But if there's good people who came from Vine as well, let me know because I didn't know about that. And
How incredibly unfortunate for the world. I'm glad they got shut down. I'm sad that they couldn't just shut down Logan Paul in real life. Just shut him down, find the switch on the back of his neck, and turn that motherfucker off.
Yeah, I totally agree. Can someone in the chat send me a link for Kamazot's YouTube channel because I can't find it in the search. Aaron, with our last little bit, is there anything you wanted to speak truth to power about?
Oh my goodness, I try to do that every day on my channel. You know what? I can't think of anything off the top of my head at this moment. You know what? Actually, earlier today I seen a video by American Johnson that was talking about America's birthday, the 4th of July, and how it was basically ingrained in him and probably most of Americans to believe that they are one of the most important countries in the world, and how patriotism is extremely important and so forth. And I think that and he was talking about how he used to be a patriot,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like he still is a patriot, and I feel like you are, and I feel like I am, but not necessarily as far as it goes to America as the nation state. I think that we are patriotic when it comes to supporting the people, the workers in our countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we should forget about that, especially on such an important occasion as Canada Day or on the 4th of July, not to forget that we are being patriotic by wanting to see the best for the people in those countries. Being a patriot doesn't mean supporting the troops. Being a patriot doesn't mean supporting the state, at least not in my view of it. It means supporting the people that are in your country that are working towards trying to make it better. And that's what we should really be celebrating when you're launching those firecrackers off and possibly blowing up your hands. I think that you should probably be focusing on the fact that that those are the things that are the most important in during this time,
Mm-hmm.
and not allowing and not condoning or allowing something like the creation of concentration camps or dead immigrants all across the United States Mexico border, and these sorts of things. I think that that's being patriotic, not supporting a fascist dictatorial regime.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the textbook definition of patriotism is it's like a love and devotion towards one's homeland or alliance, with citizens who share the same beliefs in that homeland.
Sure.
But I'm embarrassed to say one of the first tattoos I ever got was a Canadian maple leaf as a stupid high schooler because I was like, yeah, right, yeah, my home country, derp. And you grow up and you're embarrassed about that. But one of the cool things about educating yourself and learning more is kind of learning about the abolition of borders, like the idea that at what point, I mean, what exactly is your ideal scenario for the future? And that's one of the reasons that I kind of like I love aligning myself with socialism, because in all these like sci-fi movies and movies about the future, what exactly these perfect societies like Star Trek, for example, are supposed to have, there's no longer this discussion about economies and countries, right? They're about,
Oh.
oh, like we don't really use those systems anymore. You know, we've evolved far past that, child, and things like that, right? Well, like we're essentially, I would like to move past borders because so much of our petty struggles and stuff happens to be about warring with other nations, warring with other identities, other cultures, other races, other religions. And at the end of the day, I mean, this is going to sound so hippie and utopian, but ideally, we are just one human race, right? And you
Mhm.
can even extrapolate that to we are just one planet. There's other animals and life forms on here as well. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, no, you're 100% correct. And the thing is that the very first division that they create for us is one of geographical, is a geographical division, right?
Hmm.
The people on the coasts are no different from the people in the center of the country. The people that are in China are no different from the people that are in Canada. The people in Saudi Arabia are no different than the people that are in wherever else you want to say, Mexico or whatever. We
Hmm.
are all people, right?
Hmm.
And we are, like I said a moment ago, we are born into these boxes that they've assigned for us, and then we're forced to fight to defend those boxes. And once we are able to eliminate the idea of those boxes in the first place, then we can actually move forward to a society like Star Trek or like whatever, where we actually do have unity as an entire human species and not just fighting against one another for arbitrary reasons.
I don't think we're going to be able to end on a more beautiful sentiment than that. That was perfect. um, I've got Kamazot's site up here. Go subscribe. I'm going to say they because I don't know what's your preferred pronoun. So go subscribe to Kamazot's, and I'm going to check out their content very quickly or soon. And more importantly, to our guest of the hour, Aaron of Reeducation, you were absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, talking about Three Arrows and leftism, and even the modern future world of the space jellyfish that we touched on at the very end. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody watching. Please go subscribe to Reeducation. Check out his fantastic channel. He has educational topics and a broad range of things, and some of them are even absolutely hilarious. I don't think people give you enough credit for your humor, but well, I'll say this: my personal favorite, Wendy's makes what is it, 1.5 mil using meme marketing, the corporate
Oh,
waifu. That one is absolutely hilarious.
thank you.
Do click on that video; it is very very funny, and I think you should revert to comedy more often because you are quite funny, my friend.
Oh,
Um,
that's very sweet, Lance. Thank you, very much appreciated. Oh, and if I might,
yeah, yeah. Plug away, please.
I'm a shout out my Twitter as well because since I'm getting like whatever it is, not banned but limited for 11 hours. I want to make it important, right? So
Hmm.
definitely check out my Twitter. It's at Professor Darwin. Don't
Hmm.
ask me why it's that. It just is. But check out at Professor Darwin. And definitely follow me on there because you know what? Fuck Twitter.
Done and done. Yeah, I've got that displaying on the screen as well for everybody. Oh, and now I'm looking at my own logo. This is Inception. It's so meta. And I've also got your Patreon up here for anybody who can support or spare a dollar. Patreon.com/deadheadanimation is how you can support Reeducation. And for anybody out there who does have the means, especially, like all you lovely people who helped us out by giving us some super chats, if you have the means to support any leftist creators, especially the ones you're fans of, please do it. It actually means the world because we don't have Koch brothers funding. Contrary to popular belief, we don't have Soros funding. We don't have even monetization funding almost anymore. It comes entirely from the people. It comes from people who are willing to support people like us and Aaron who try to make this stuff for the masses.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Every dollar, honestly, does go back into the show, and it really helps. And if it doesn't go directly back into the show, it goes back into my stomach because it's hard to, pay for rent and food at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, that's a challenge under capitalism, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much for watching, everybody. We will be live in a couple days with even more fun and spicy takes.